What up, bro?
What's going on, man? Good to
Chilling,
see you,
bro.
brother.
Same here. Same here. Glad you were able to uh, take take some time for me, bro.
Stay up a little later?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's only 11 here, man.
Oh, okay.
You
Good.
know,
Good.
practically morning time for a musician, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Man, I tell everybody who's allowed me to kind of go one on one with them that how much I appreciate them being involved. This was kind of just something that came about. And I feel like, a lot of times one-on-ones with creatives, you can tend to hear the same questions a lot.
Right.
So this is more just like inside your creative genius, if you will. So thanks for being so willing. You were one of the first people to commit, and I just wanted to make sure that I had the substance lined out for the whole month. So I'm glad you are here
Oh, man.
to round us out. You know what I'm
I
saying?
appreciate that, bro. I like your backdrop too, man. That's a lot better than my
Oh
star
man,
here.
yours is dope though, man. I I want to go ahead and get into it because there's a lot that I don't know personally about your story. I do research on everyone, but research is only but so comparable to hearing it straight from the artist him or
Sure, man.
herself. So,
Yeah.
so Harlem, is that the way to pronounce Harlem, or is it just
Yeah,
Harlem?
it's actually I was born in Harlem. It's Harlem, and it's the same as Harlem, in New York, except it's got two A's in it.
Two A's, right?
And from what I understand, Harlem in New York is actually named after Harlem.
Okay,
Like
yeah.
like
You know what? It wasn't until I went to Amsterdam for the first time that someone hit me that New York used to actually be called New Amsterdam back
correct,
in the
yeah.
day. So
Isn't
makes
that
sense.
crazy?
Crazy, but seeing and visiting both, I can understand the vibe. The vibe is
Right.
just a multicultural vibe and all of that kind of thing. I can understand how it was like that.
Yeah, a lot of similarities, man.
So did you grow up in Harlem?
No, I was actually born there, but I grew up in a small town close to Harlem called Zandvoort, which is sort of like a very small village by the beach. It's famous in Holland because a lot of people go there for holidays or
Okay.
when the weather's, a lot of times in Holland is a very sort of rainy, gray country most of the year.
Yeah,
So the scarce days that the sun's out, a lot of people tend to go to that spot to get some beach time in. And a lot of
gotcha.
people from Germany come out to that spot. So that's where I grew up, man, by the beach.
How close is it to Germany
Um,
in terms of a drive or whatever?
I guess sort of to the most western part of Germany, the
Okay.
western border, it's about a 2 hour drive, but then, it's probably like 5 or 6 to Berlin.
Okay.
Obviously Germany is very big by
Yeah.
itself. So, but yeah, I'd say like a 2 hour drive.
So would you call where you grew up a beach town or not quite?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Did that kind of give you a certain type of vibe, more relaxed? Like when I think of beach towns and people who grow up by the beach, I imagine a vibe that's just very cool, relaxed, chill. You
You know
you
what?
seem to have that vibe. I don't know. I could be wrong, but
Yeah,
um,
I was never into like I never physically got into surfing, but I do have that surfer's mentality. You know what I mean? Like I'm I wear shorts most of the time. I'm pretty laid back. Um, and the nice thing about growing up by the beach, especially in summer, because I guess when I was 14, probably from my 13th or 14th through my 19th, I worked at the beach because we have these beach clubs, and and um, I rented out beds, during the day, which was probably, besides being a musician, one of the best gigs in the world because you get paid hanging out at the beach all day talking to pretty girls.
yeah,
It
how
was
can you go
wonderful,
wrong?
man. Yeah.
So, what would you say you were like your character
Growing
as
up,
a young Alan? What was he like?
yeah. Um, I was pretty shy, I think, pretty, I kind of took to myself a lot in the background. I grew up with two older sisters
Okay.
and, very sort of sparkly characters, both of them. But they definitely sort of filled out that energy, you know, because they're older than I was. So,
Yeah.
you know, they definitely filled out that energy spectrum at the house. So I was always kind of a little bit, you know, in the back, you know, just witnessing all the trouble, man.
Yeah.
Um, and definitely, I think that's what helped me, um, or at least got me to turn to music.
Okay.
You know, to get my sort of story out and to find my personality. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
That's what's up, man.
How
Yeah.
about you though, man? Like, how were you when you were a kid?
Oh man, I overcame. I've overcome a lot.
Right,
Uh, Comparatively speaking, as a kid, I mean, middle child. So I had
right.
that syndrome all day, like fighting for attention. My
Yeah,
brother was the good guy. He was the hero. So I immediately acquiesced to being the villain. You know, I was the one who was always getting in trouble. So it was I got my attention, which is what my
musician
goal
too. Was
was.
your brother a musician as well?
My brother is musical.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say he's a musician. He does play does play instruments. So he grew up playing more in the classical band type of setting.
right,
But my brother's a visual artist when it comes to like directing and editing and everything. He's an editor. So
right.
yeah. So we grew up in an artsy type of environment. Um, but yeah, man, I had a lot going on when I was a kid, and I think that kind of led to my embracing music as a way to kind of just be me without any interruptions. You know what I'm saying?
Right, man.
Um, I was going to ask you about English because, you know, like um, on this side, you know, there are some that know about Holland or the Netherlands, and
Right.
you know, they have a perception of what goes on there, what language is like, and everything. But I always find it amazing that so many people have a command of the
Hmm.
English language, and I was curious. Um, because I speak French and I had to acquire that, but I had to acquire it over here in the
Yeah,
States. So
sure.
it wasn't like I was walking around with a bunch of French people around me to really talk to. So
Yeah.
other than in class, it really wasn't, you know, anything for me to do. I was curious from your standpoint of learning language. Was it better to learn in school, or is the experience of speaking to English speakers better for learning uh, for
Oh,
you? Or,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely the latter. I think, you know, speaking is always the way to really learn it. But I think a lot of the Dutch are good, uh, you know, with English because of we all grew up watching like American and English cartoons, you know. And in a lot of other countries in Europe, they what do you call it? They synchronize them, or what do you call that? Overdub them.
overdub, yeah.
Yeah, they overdub them in the local language. And I think you typically find in those countries that a lot of people have the sort of the level of English is a little bit lower than where they
Mm,
don't do that at. You know what I mean?
gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, I find that talking, I've been trying to learn Spanish for the last year, and I've been using the memorizers and the Duolingos and some books and stuff.
Yeah,
So my
okay.
vocabulary, I notice my vocabulary is going up, but I also know that until I actually start speaking to someone in Spanish, I won't learn shit, you know.
Gotcha.
It's scary though, man. Like it's scary,
Yeah, it is. I think
right?
jumping out. I had a French teacher when I was in the seventh grade, uh, who was very domineering. He was an
Right.
older gentleman. He was like 6'4", what have you. So he he imposed. He was very imposing, you know, when
Yeah.
it came to trying to speak. So there was this intimidation factor if you were trying to answer a question because you were fearful of whether you were going to get the right answer or not. So I had to really get over that when speaking to people in French because I was afraid of making a mistake so much. You know what I'm saying?
Man, that's what my French teacher was like in high school as well. It was horrible. It was horrible. Yeah, and it makes such a big difference, man. You got a nice teacher, you
Yeah.
know, that's
Yeah.
it.
I ended up becoming a French teacher for about 7 years. So I made it a
Right,
point to
man.
be like nice, like no homework.
Uh,
Let's shoot paper balls into the trash can and you know, that type of thing. So I
you went
tried to
the other
write the
extreme.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I would bring my guitar in and that type of stuff. It was cool.
yeah. Oh, that's dope, man.
Yeah, it was cool. I so from a musical standpoint,
I see you. That's funny. Miss me.
Oh, that is funny. Les Français
Uh,
sont méchants. I was going to ask you from a musical standpoint. I started singing before I started playing. Is that the same with you?
oh man. You know what? I've actually, yeah, I think so. My dad used to sing. He used to have a band back in the day. They did like covers, like soul cover songs. So I
Nice.
grew up watching him play, as a
Okay.
kid, and I never really thought much of it. It's just something that my dad used to do. But there was a lot of singing in the house. But I didn't really get serious with music until, I mean, I started playing guitar when I was 9, but that wasn't really like a dream. It was more my mother's dream. She sort
Okay.
of put me on guitar lessons. Um, it wasn't until I, fell in love with a girl at probably age 13 or 14 or so that I realized, wait a minute, man, this whole music making thing is probably a good way to, you know, some romance in my life.
Would you say that around that time you probably wrote your first
Yeah, probably.
song?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Isn't
Around
that
that
fucking?
time,
Yeah.
it worked too.
Did it?
It did for about a week.
Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How,
It's an interesting journey. I mean, especially when you're trying to become better at two things, and then
right.
the songwriting and then the production and all of that type of standpoint, like
Yeah.
trying to make sure you're consistently growing and
Right,
all
man.
of those talents, man. It's been a challenge for me. I think part of that has just been women, taking a lot of my attention.
Isn't
um,
that crazy how that's pretty much the drive behind everything in life? It's just that, man.
they're the most powerful beings, man.
It's a powerful engine. No, it's not just women, men, whatever, whatever you're into. It's just sort of that force, man, of life, really. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And we tend to sort of dance around it, and put some makeup on it and make it sound all romantic and sweet. But at the end of the day, that's all it is, man. That's what all the nice songs and the good movies and the good books and and the fast cars are about, I think.
Fast cars. Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
I'm in it for the fast cars, bro. So once I
Yeah.
once I do that, then I'll be satisfied. But until then, I'm good.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. I was gonna say, so you said your mom kind of steered you into the guitar lessons, and then maybe around 13 or 14, you kind of started getting more, like, I guess the love of pursuit, the pursuit of music, I guess, became more of a
Right.
real thing for you. Did you envision at that time, hey, I want to be an artist, or did you say I want to be a songwriter, or did you have an idea of how you wanted that to come to pass?
No, that didn't come until probably I was about 17 or 18 or so. But before that time, I was very much into playing basketball and probably like every kid, you know, being around that age in the 90s,
Yeah.
I just wanted to be Michael Jordan, man. You know what I mean?
Nice.
Um, Shave my head when I still had hair, all that stuff. Um, So yeah, it was really just that was my big dream, and music for me was just a way to express myself. I never really saw myself as a songwriter or a singer or a musician at all. But if I look back at it, all the sort of ingredients of a developing songwriter were already, in place.
Gotcha.
Um, and it wasn't until I guess I got out of high school that I realized, wait a minute, now I actually have to make choices in where to go with my life. And music just took over. Like it was just a very organic sort of rollover into realizing that I was never going to make it to NBA, and and this music thing was actually in me. That's all I was doing every day was write songs.
Nice. So
Um,
how does that type of thing, how does that idea translate in Holland? Was it like, okay, I'm going to make some demos and send them in, or I'm going to do some open mics, or how did that work?
you know what? I actually was lucky enough that in my high school I had music as a subject. So and we used to do these you know, every year we used to do like 2 shows at the school, and a lot of people from Harlem would come there. And at one of these, an exec from an A&R guy from Sony was there, and and he saw me play. So
Nice.
we kind of got into conversations pretty early, and then he offered me sort of a demo deal, and
Okay.
I think I was about 18 at the time, maybe late 17. But then my sister's boyfriend at the time, an American guy, he was in the music industry as well, and he heard some of my demos and he played it to some people in the States, and there was some interest there. So I guess when I was just out of high school, 18, 19 maybe, I flew over to LA to sort of see what that was all about. And long story short, I was there for 3 years just talking to people and doing the hustle, man,
Yeah.
which is pretty exciting when you're 19. You know what I mean?
In LA and
Yeah,
music. I mean,
yeah. And I kind of got away from the life I was used to and the name that I had, and just that sort of the idea of who I was
okay.
and of other people. Because at that age, you just come out of high school, that's what life is. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, I left that all behind and went to Los Angeles. So it was like a new slate for me,
Yeah.
which is great. Like I had the best time, man. It was
I
great.
couldn't imagine when I think about where my mind was in high school,
Right,
coming out, being in a place like LA as
right.
well. Because I didn't grow up around the water at all. I grew up, we have a river, but it's like you're not getting into that and doing anything. You just drive over it. But
Right.
to go from where I was living to LA, and then being how LA is in terms of entertainment and everything like that, I can only imagine um, having an experience like that. Is that where you started like really, really recording or fine tuning the art of recording when you were in LA?
Yeah, I guess fine tune. I mean, I was doing a lot of demoing, so a lot of recording. But at the time, like all the kids these days have the pro tools set
Oh
up
yeah,
at their house in their laptop. Back then, I didn't have a laptop. You couldn't afford a laptop back then. So
yeah.
it was like the rolling hard disk recorder, with 8 tracks. And then if you wanted to have 9 tracks, you had to either, put 2 tracks on one or get rid of something or
Wow.
all that stuff, man. And even before that, I was with the 2 cassettes, just, record on one, playing, what it's all about.
Yeah,
Flip them until the tape, didn't give you any more. Great
yeah,
times though, man. I kind of miss those times sometimes.
yeah. I feel like the organic element. Um, Everything is a lot quicker now as well too. When you're producing and
Yeah.
anything inside the box, you can say, "Oh man, I want a hi hat that sounds like tick, 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 tick. Let me just
It's
grab this
crazy.
hi hat pattern and put it right there,
From
and boom."
splice, like any type of hi-hat. Oh, you want a hi-hat played by, you know, whoever, man, like the best drummer in the world? Sure, here it is. Back then, you had to sample that stuff, remember, with an Akai and
Oh
sort of
yeah,
through the
ooh,
DAT tape and
that's
the MIDI stuff.
artists. Oh yeah, midis. Oh, MIDI
Yeah.
MIDI chords, just getting things to
Oh,
sync up properly and everything.
man, it's crazy. But a lot of fun, though. I think it definitely, I mean, I guess there's pros and cons to every situation, I guess. I have a 10-year-old boy, and he's got his little Pro Tool set up on his iPad, man, or like a little Cubase setup. And it's
Nice.
crazy, like the beats he's making at 10. Come on, man, it's ridiculous, you know.
So
But
did you go back to Holland from LA, or what happened after that?
um, yes, I was there for pretty much 3 years, and then after that, I came back to Holland, and that's actually when I did my first record for a record company because I did end up um, signing a deal with Sony Holland.
Nice.
So it's like 3 years after.
Wow.
And in my mind, it was still in LA and doing that thing, but I was hustling so much and trying to get, something going with all the ups and downs in LA. And somebody was ready to work with me in Holland with Sony. So I was like, you know what? Let me just do this. And whenever I'm in Holland, I work on this. And then that just sort of took over for a good minute. And all of a sudden, I started making some money, and that allowed me to, get my studio together and work with all types of different artists. So it's sort of organically morphed into just me being here.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, actually doing work, and
Yeah.
doing some gigs. Started as a background singer for, at the time, remember American Idol?
Yeah.
yeah, so around that year, um, like the first edition of that in Holland, I got to write some songs for some of the people that sang on that, and so all of a sudden I was doing stuff, you know, instead of dreaming, I was actually getting my hands dirty.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a good time for me. Um, and then and then I realized, you know what, man, I made enough money to just here I was like in LA trying to get a record deal so I could pay like a studio and a producer and all that stuff. And in the meantime, I had already produced a lot of work for other artists. I'm like, man, forget that. I got my own money now. Let me just produce my own record.
Nice.
So that's what I did, and I left Sony before that.
Okay.
Produced my own record. It was my first English record. It's called Live It Out, and that just blew up, man. Like a year later, it blew up. So that
Wow.
was yeah, that's kind of my start.
So what I want to ask you, and I'm gonna mispronounce this title. Is it he? All the people in Holland watching right now, here you go. Here's your opportunity to get a chuckle out of me. Is it Heerlijk?
Oh yeah,
Is
Gaelic.
that
Yeah,
how you
no, that's
pronounce it?
actually pretty good. That's flawless right there. Yeah, nice, man. You've been practicing that. I could tell.
You saw how I was like,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah. So
So
that
like, tell me about that record. Like,
yeah, so that was the record I did for Sony after I just got out of LA. And
okay,
it really started with just a sort of a quirky little idea, just having fun at the studio, some, you know, some production sort of jokes and techniques and fun stuff, you know. Because again, in my mind, I was still working on getting signed in LA. So my energy was like, oh yeah, all right, I'll make you a little fun record. But then
hmm
I didn't realize my through my naivety, I was like, I forgot that that's how people were gonna get to know me through that record because I had never released anything before. Um, so I released that record and it was a little different, man. Like if I look back at it, I was like, wow, where was my mind at? But it was still fun though, and it got me some attention in the industry here, and it got me a lot of production gigs, and it got me a couple of actual gigs, like live
nice.
gigs. So it wasn't a huge success, but it still got me some good attention that allowed me, you know, to get a step closer to making that record that I had always been dreaming of. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I find it really cool that you you started to endeavor in the world of production and owning your own equipment and that type of thing from the beginning. You know,
Right.
I remember like back with the Digio 1 and Digio 2 and all that type of stuff. It was so revolutionary for everybody because they could
Crazy.
start doing some things that you couldn't necessarily do before, you know what I mean?
Right,
Um,
man.
so from the production standpoint, has it always just been you producing yourself, or have you studied under anyone, or like where have those like inspirations come from on the production end?
Um, I mean, the inspiration definitely came from there was a long time in my life when I thought all music was Michael Jackson. Like I didn't realize was any other music out there. And I really started like getting interested in sort of the production thing, just copying those beats, just figuring out the layers and the anatomy of those songs. Um, and you know, we talked about the whole MIDI thing before. That was a lot of fun for me, man. Just getting, you know, you get the strings. I think number 45 was like the warm strings, MIDI number 45, you know, and do all that stuff that way. And then, like you said, as the equipment started getting better, it was a lot easier to get the nice sounds out, right?
Yeah.
And that's all it was for me, and just playing around, just messing around, man. And coming from putting the cassette tapes next to each other, at some point being able to actually sing straight into a computer, record directly to a hard disk was like that was unheard of, man.
Yeah,
Such
it
a
was.
big step, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's really just how it went. It wasn't like there was no real serious thought about it. Like I want to be a producer. Or, it's just having fun and playing with it and figuring it out, man.
Looking back on it, do you feel like making that step or making that investment in time gave you more leverage when it came to creativity and artistic freedom in that regard?
Well, what I definitely realize now, if I look at some of the younger artists right now, obviously there's a lot of really talented people out there, a lot of talented singers as well. But I know too many singers, and this is not, bad critique or anything, because that's just the way, they grew up. But I wish upon a lot of these singers for them to be able to record their own stuff, so they don't have to depend on someone else to, get creative and grow.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember we talked about this before. It's the fact that we have an instrument that we can rely on. If you have an idea in your head, like that's probably the first thing you do. You run to your guitar, and that's just such a blessing. So I definitely think that's a very important investment for anyone to make, who has creative juices flowing. Like you gotta make sure you you hone your tools so that you can get to crafting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you given artistic or creative freedom from the label perspective when that was going on, or did you have to fight in that way?
No, I was fortunate enough to never have had to fight for
Wow.
creative freedom. But it was also, I guess, sort of the disposition. I just came to them with work. It wasn't like, I didn't sign to any label ever. Like, I need work, and you need to hook me up with these and these people. Which of course that has happened. I'm very happy that did, but it always felt like an addition to what I was already doing.
Got you.
Yeah,
That's really,
yeah, it's a
it's
blessing.
very rare, very rare.
You think so? Yeah, I don't
To
know. How
come
about? Oh,
over here doesn't happen, you know.
yeah,
It's almost like an 18-year-old over here who produces and that type of thing. It's something that would be noted. Like, oh, okay, cool, cool. Yeah, 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 you can produce. However, we're going to put you with this person, we're going to put you with
right.
that person, and
Yeah,
then then maybe on your second or your third album we'll let
mm,
you start kind of steering the ship a little bit,
yeah,
and then what happens is if record number one isn't a success, you might have
right.
been overexposed with music that really doesn't even represent you to begin with.
It's crazy, isn't it? Like I was just talking about this with another friend. Like even if you think about someone like Marvin Gaye, in his early days, he was singing all the sweet, polished Motown songs.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until he gained some of that freedom, where he started working on the what's
Yeah.
going on and stuff, where he really got to the depths, right?
Yeah.
How we remember him as the great. So I don't know. It's at the same time, man, it's always a process, and I kind of I like to believe that things happen for a reason. And if you have to go through a phase where other people have to tell you who you are, if that in the end is going to help you figure out who you are yourself, that can only be a good thing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know, man. It's because I guess the other side of the story is if you're always used to just relying on yourself, it's harder to get, to trust somebody to give real feedback that actually might help you as well,
I was just gonna say that.
right?
That trust factor, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, how do you develop it then when you can do so many things? How do you know, like I know you know your way around instruments very well. How do you say, okay, how do you know when let's say you're accompanying something that you've composed on guitar, how do you know that the keyboard part or the piano part is meant for you to be played as opposed to someone else that might,
Yeah.
have been playing since they were, I don't know, whatever.
Well, in general, I actually think 95% of the time that whatever I play, maybe unless it's guitar, because that's definitely what I'm most comfortable with. But even that, I would say 95% of the time, I always know there's going to be someone else who can play it better and who should play it and who
Yeah.
usually does play it. So a lot of times I just use my own, as far as my talent goes to play, I'll use that to lay down the ideas. But a lot of times I already have in my head while I'm playing it, like, oh, this guy's gonna play it or this girl's gonna play it like that,
Yeah.
you know, which is nice. And sometimes you end up, you know, even with, you can get a much better player in to play the guitar part that I played, and I'm like, yeah, it's a lot, technically it's a lot better, but I'm gonna stick with what I played just because of the feel. But
Feel.
that's such a nice. I love that part about recording, man. That's my favorite part, is where
Yeah.
the idea is there, and you bring people in, man, and then all of a sudden, from being this idea that you have in your head, all of a sudden you share it, and it becomes this live, just this live entity almost, you know.
Yeah. Do you prefer it? Do you prefer when you're composing an idea or you're putting an idea together, do you prefer to just keep it with kind of one singular instrument until you've written the song, or has it
Mm.
ever happened the reverse where you've just kind of been on a musical vibe and then all the
Yeah,
elements start getting added and then you write to it?
yeah, that's how I always, that's always one of my favorite questions to ask artists and producers as well, because it's just always so interesting to see the difference in processes. But I must say, I probably pretty much had them all, like all the different ways to do it. I've probably been there.
Okay.
But recently, my favorite way to do it is just write the song, write the full song on guitar or piano, whatever, and not even touch like a recording device until it's finished. Like I might record the whole thing on my memory recorder from my phone, so I won't forget. And then the next step is just to lay a super simple demo down,
Gotcha.
even like as crappy as I possibly can, so that I don't get married to anything. And then when I go into production mode and bring guys in and we get together with the guys, then everything is new and
Yeah.
everything is better than it was, you know.
Yeah.
So I kind of like to keep that virgin state to the song as long as I can.
I think that was the cool thing when we worked together, because that was probably one of the first times that in a long time that I had taken my time just focusing on the song on guitar. You know,
Yeah,
when I
that was a
first
fun
learned how to,
process though, man.
man, it was great because I mean, when I first learned how to play, that's all I had. You know, just the
Yeah,
guitar, and I would take my time. I would play the song 30,000 times because I wanted to see how this first line went into the second line, went into the third line. You know,
exactly.
and then you start. For me, I started recording myself and I started trying to write songs for people, so it became method, you know, inside of the
Yeah,
box, you know. And I forgot part of that process, but I do feel like when you do write in that way, you're a lot more considerate about how everything is married to everything else. And you
mm.
know, by the time it's time to lay it down, at least in a demo format, you understand what it is, you know.
Yeah, yeah. You just know you know, the heart of it almost, right? And then sort of how you dress it doesn't even really matter, you know, whether it's a red sweater or a blue jacket. You know, it's all good, baby.
Yeah.
Um, and also, I like to sort of sometimes trick myself into, well, no, I like to sort of imagine when I start writing a song, like I imagine having to play it live the next day on national TV, solo. So there's no time for a band. There's no time for like complicated licks or anything like that. You just got to play the song, you know. And I find sometimes that really helps me to just get to like the bare basics of getting the message across
Yeah.
musically and the simplicity of it, and also lyrically. Um, and sometimes to put a little pressure on myself like that can really help me make decisions as well, you know.
Yeah.
Because
That's
I
a
don't know
great
if
way to
you
look
agree,
at it.
but a lot of times the kryptonite of writing a song is just sort of just the chatter of the little hater inside. Like, that's not good enough. That's not commercial enough. That's not catchy enough. You know, it's not sexy enough. It's not this. If you can just let that go and just write whatever the hell you
Yeah.
feel.
Man. I mean, I actually started thinking about it one day. I was like, man, when I used to study for tests, I used to be like, man, which answers to the questions were easier for me to remember going in? The
Mm,
paragraph or the
right.
sentence?
Oh, that's
And then I
interesting.
would say, okay, well, if I can remember a sentence easier than I can remember a paragraph, then from a writer's standpoint, I can't expect my listener to be just bombarded with so much information, so many different melodies, so much text, so many, you know, different chord changes all at once,
Yeah.
and them walk away on first listen really having grasped my message, you know,
Mm.
kind of can get caught up, you know, that not good enough thing. Like for me, there was a time when I was like, no, every record that I'm doing has to have a B section that's
Right.
different than the verse
Yeah.
musically. And it has to have, and the chorus needs to be different, and it needs to have a bridge. So I'm
Right.
trying to create 4 musical ideas for every song that I create, you know?
Mm.
And I do feel like there's a place for that because I love a good B section and I love hearing a real bridge, you know? There's no
I hear that.
substitution for it.
No.
But there are times when the feel of it is just right there. And once you're there, you're like, why do you want to go somewhere else? We're right here. We're having a great time. You know, let's
Sometimes
enjoy these
that's
3
enough,
minutes.
isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
true, man. And it's nice. I always try to look for the energy. Like even now, you know, we didn't talk about what we're gonna talk about. You just hit me up, yo, let's do this. All right.
yeah.
And we're just talking. Um, what if we were to treat this conversation like, you know, a lot of times how we write songs, like, oh, yeah, think about what I gotta say now. Oh, it's
Yeah,
gotta be really smart what I say. You know, it's gonna be an awkward conversation, man. You
yeah,
know, and I feel like if you can just allow that pureness and that natural flow into your songwriting and just trust that it's all right. You know, it doesn't have to be this sort of deep poetry all the time. Just say what you want to say and mean it. Um, I think that's where at least I find personally that it resonates most with myself and with other people as well.
gangster.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you started talking about Live It Out,
Yeah.
and that was your first English album, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
What made you say, I'm doing an English album, man. I got this, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's actually, you know, when I went to LA, I was really dreaming of making that record.
Okay.
Um, Actually, some of the songs, no, I have to say, actually, just one of the songs that's on that record, I had already written before I put my Dutch record out.
Okay.
I wrote that in a time when I was living in Los Angeles. So um, that's really just the reason, man. I always imagined singing in English um, and doing that, and I guess that was just the right time to do it. You
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
I like I speak French, but I have a couple of at least one song where I'm singing half in French and half in English and rhyming with myself and advancing the story. It was one of those things where I was like, oh, I'm gonna prove to myself that I can, you know, be crafty in 2 languages at once. But
I gotta
I
hear that, man.
yeah, I have yet to just commit to like a French album or a French
Mm.
anything like that, mainly because it's just like the idioms and expressions. I don't want to betray the language by trying to sing in French with an English mind, you know?
Mm. You
Um,
don't want to betray the French language? Is that what you're saying?
like yeah, I don't want to like there's certain things like in French, you know, um, like in English, we'll be like, yo, you know, da 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 da, da, you know. In
Sure.
French, it's tu vois, you know, it's like da 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 da,
Right.
tu vois, you know, and that literally is you see instead of you know, but it's
Yeah.
used in the same way. So it's
Right.
like those little nuances make just a lot of difference in terms of translating a message the way that I would like to, and I want to make sure I have a handle on all those things, you know,
Oh, yeah, I see.
before I do, you know, like I
But don't
think,
overthink it though, man, because I'm pretty sure that to like native French speakers or whatever, you know, that's gonna be really interesting, you
yeah,
know, because you're gonna, even if it's just a little hint of a detail, um, you know, it's gonna be something that probably someone, you know, spoke who's like actual French artist wouldn't have thought of. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
yeah,
sometimes it's nice though.
that's a very good point. That's a very good point. Uh, maybe without a whole bunch of language to confuse you, you can focus on, you know, a select bit of language that's going to get the
Exactly.
message across. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I don't know if you find this too, but like, I play a little enough piano to write, you know, and like simple stuff. but I have ideas though because of my limited playing that real pianists don't have sometimes. You know what I mean?
Ah,
Or sometimes someone will grab a guitar who's not a great or an experienced guitar player, and he'll play stuff, and I'll be like, wow, I would have never played that, you know. But
yeah.
it's very interesting. Um, and maybe that's sort of a similar thing, man. We're just gotta not overthink it, maybe.
I would think that that's kind of a reoccurring theme that tends to come my way.
Oh,
It's a life thing, you know, not even
right.
just music. It's a life thing for me. Like, don't overthink it, you know, type deal.
Yeah, same here though, man. I think that probably pretty much counts for most people, especially creatives, don't you think?
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. You're trying to you're thinking about people loving something that isn't even all the way created yet, you know,
yeah,
and sometimes when you're focused on that too much, you kind of forget the ride, you know. Part of the best part of the journey, you know, is the journey. It's the ride itself. It's not getting to the destination. So, you know.
absolutely, bro. Absolutely.
So
Yeah,
let me ask you about Father and Friend then, because you mentioned Live It Out and everything like that. I want to
yeah.
ask you because I think about my dad. My dad swears he can sing, but
No.
if if I was Randy Jackson and my dad was auditioning for American Idol, I'd be like, that's a no from me, dog.
Oh, that's
That's
funny, man.
but I
You better
wanted
not be
to ask
watching
you,
right now.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I listen to that song a lot of times, and your dad, his tone is just
Man, his tone, my
so,
dad's tone's ridiculous. And for a
man,
long for a long time, you know, in my younger life, I had the dream of like one day getting my father's voice, you know. And then I turned 23, 24. Probably at my 25th, I gave up. It's like, yeah, no, probably gonna skip a generation. And then my boy, he has a deep tone like that again, so he'll probably
really
get it. Yeah. Uh,
nice.
yeah, but no, it's crazy, man. It's you know, I used to get goosebumps just by him yelling at me when he was upset with me. Like it's like that kind of tone. Um,
Did you vocal produce him on that song, or did you kind of just let him do his thing? How did that work?
yeah, that was a fun process, man. Because obviously, you know, we had to spend a lot of time just as you know, a father and son, like hanging out, and there was always singing. And like I said, he used to sing in a band. And when I was younger, sometimes he'd get me on stage to do a couple songs. So we've had that experience and interaction, but we never spent time in the studio recording, and especially not with me, sort of in the, you know, in the producer's seat. So that was a really fun experience in itself. And to be honest with you, when I wrote the song, I didn't imagine that song to, you know, to be such a big song out here. For me, it was just I actually think I think that um, that's that energy also contributed to it resonating so much because it was just a very real. There was zero thought behind it. Like let's make a hit song. You know
Wow.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, he was in the studio and he's a great. You know, like I said, man, he could sing anything. It just sounds great. But yeah, I would vocal produce it a little bit because I had these ideas of just like how we would wave in and like harmonize and all that stuff. So there was some of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when songs become hits in Holland,
Yeah.
does it? I've heard different stories about where it travels from there. Like they may
Sure.
travel to Belgium from there, or and then Germany from there. Or is that true, or is that kind of how it works? Or
Belgium is the logical sort of crossover market,
okay,
but a lot of times it tends not to unless it's in Dutch.
okay,
Um, and even then, a handful of artists only. But I had to, you know, I was lucky enough to have gotten picked up by Warner Brothers in the UK during sort of the peak of the success of Father and Friend, and they signed me, and then we did a release in the UK, we did a release in Italy and Switzerland.
okay.
And the UK did all right, but Switzerland and Italy, the song, you know, did really well also. So that was nice, man. Because my
Nice.
first time going to Italy was doing a show,
Wow.
and you know I've been there tons of times after, and it's one of my favorite places to travel to.
So
Have
when
you been?
you never been,
Oh man,
some point.
man, like you'd kill it there too, man. They love your stuff out there.
You think
Yeah,
so?
for sure. Oh, absolutely. I mean, they'd love your stuff anywhere in the world, man. Come on, your
Appreciate it.
songs are amazing. But Italy is such a great place to play, man, because they're all about that warmth and the food. And you go out, you play. I did festivals there. The band and I did, and you finish at whatever, like midnight or 1 a.m. And then it's sort of standard practice for the production to take you out to dinner,
Oh
1 a.m.
wow.
And they will have just rented out like a spot, and it's just you and the band and the production crew, and you're just eating.
Nice.
It's the best, man. It's the best.
So was the early touring for you straight acoustic, or it was always a band as soon as
Yeah,
it was time to go?
the early touring for me, especially in the sort of with that record, was big. Like, man, I had four horn players and percussion and three background singers. We were like sort of like a soul review type of situation, man. I didn't make
Nice.
any money, but we did some nice shows though. People got their money's worth for sure.
So how are you as a band leader? Because I know, or do you delegate accordingly? Because I can imagine having that many pieces and still
Yeah.
getting your vision across. Is it just like, hey, play the record, or do you kind of steer, go with the vibe? How does it work for you arrangement wise?
It's a little bit in between,
Okay.
and that developed over the time. I was pretty inexperienced in the live field when I started, so I had to rely and trust, the musicians on board, and you know how certain musicians always kind of have that sort of alpha position and like, oh, I got this, or so I relied on that a lot. But I definitely always knew what I wanted to hear, so that helped a lot. And it was a very sort of family type of situation that we had going because it was a very big change in my life, going from playing bars to like doing stadium type situations or like 5,000 venue type situations. So um, that was a big change, and I really was so lucky and happy and proud to have had those people around me
Wow.
to go along that ride with me. So it really
Nice.
felt like, I was the artist, but it felt like we were a band, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great way to be able to execute, because I've seen situations where the band is kind of like treated a certain type of way, and then I've
Yeah.
seen situations where the band is more invested, like they feel like it's everything's a reflection of them, so they're just really in tune with how things are going to come across, and they care, that type of
Man,
thing.
if you ask me, that's how you want it because also, like even now, like 10, 11 years later, um, I still call those guys up, man. Remember that gig? Remember that time we this and that over there? That's where the priceless shit is. It's not
Yeah,
in the money or all the fame or all the recognition you get. I mean, that's fun while it lasts, but the real shit is in just making experiences and having someone to share it with, I think.
definitely.
Right?
Definitely agree.
Right.
If you're just tuning in, I am Candid with my guy Alan Clark. He's used to being in my seat, and so he's
It's fun,
gracing
man.
me. Yeah, I hi to everybody in the UK and France. I saw people checking in all over the place. Do you remember the Soul Live Festival last year, Alan?
Man, I actually do, and it's funny because who was asking me is official Soul Live. That's funny. But I do remember that was a very fun gig, and it was very hot that day. And I remember we hung out after um, for a long time because it was such a nice day. I
Nice.
remember that, yeah.
Okay, so this is what I want to do, because the Instagram world is interesting when it comes to time, and I
Yeah,
do have a few more questions for you.
please do, man. Yeah.
I want to take a 20-second timeout
Yeah.
so that I can upload this and we get a fresh set of minutes to speak.
I like that.
Um,
That way I can put some power in my phone because it's running out of juice.
Nice. Okay,
Yeah.
so everybody tuning in, we're just gonna reset the time real quick. So don't go anywhere. Just come right back. Alan's gonna join me again, and I'm gonna talk about some more things with him. I have enjoyed it thus far. We're gonna get a little deeper.
Yeah,
Indonesia,
man.
what up? All right, I'll see you in a second, bro.
See you in a second.
All right,
Yo.
all right, guys, come right back. All right, cool.
Yeah,
Boom.
man.
Back. All right. Cool.
Should have changed shirts for this, man.
That would have been hilarious. Oh man. I I wanted to ask you, um, looking back on your first album, let's say your first English album, the process of putting it together, things that were important to you, creativity,
Yeah.
and be that with Sunday Afternoon.
Huh.
What's different about you as an artist,
Yeah.
and the message, if there is any difference?
Hmm. That's actually interesting for me because when I made Sunday Afternoon and my good friend Justin Stanley produced that record for me,
Okay.
which is already a difference from Live It Out, which I produced myself. Um, is that a lot of the feeling that I got from working on that record was similar to Live It Out, but then like 10, 11 years later.
Okay.
Um, so I actually feel like I made a full circle with that, with making Sunday Afternoon.
Wow.
I felt like coming home again a little bit. Um, I guess the big difference is that I felt when I was making Live It Out, like, nobody really knew who I was and nobody was really waiting for my music. It was just sort of on my time, on my terms. And I had written probably, whatever, like 100 songs to that time, of which, I chose the freshest and the ones that felt best for that record. And every record after that, you just write for the sake of making your next record. So
Yeah.
there's some pressure on it. And in terms of process, man, um, yeah, a lot of it is similar. What I really loved about recording Sunday Afternoon, and Justin Stanley really helped me get to that, is we just put a band together, and that's it.
Nice.
Three, 1, 2, 3, go. And man, like I can't tell you, well, I actually can and I will. It's just the best feeling in the world.
Nice.
Just to have, how we wrote that song when we were, when you were in Holland, we
Yeah.
were at my studio, my apartment. I guess we did 2 couple-hour sessions. Came up with a
Mm-hmm.
great song, and you could quickly demoed it on your laptop.
Yep.
That's what I did with all the songs for Sunday Afternoon, just like that. I took those songs to LA and then got the band together and we pretty much sat in the live room in a circle. I didn't even play the demo, I just played them the songs on guitar. I was playing one song at a time. So your Sunday Afternoon, I was just playing, they're writing down, we're laughing a little bit, connecting like we are now. 10, 15 minutes later, we were recording a song.
Oh wow.
I didn't know what the bass player was going to play, didn't really know what the drummer was going to play. And a lot of times, the first or the second take was the take that ended up on the record because that's just where the magic is.
Yeah.
Man, I just loved it so much. And it's so inspiring for that process of like how we were hanging out here. Just grab a guitar, you got a great idea. This could actually turn into a great song once you put the right guys together with very minimal effort. You just got to put them together.
Yeah.
Beautiful, man.
Man. Yeah, it makes me when we started writing together, I was like, man, this is how I gotta actually, to be honest with you, every song that I have, composed, like collected, for this next body of work of mine, after that session, it's just kind of been like just bare bones,
Oh,
you
nice,
know,
man.
not and not even, part of my maturity has come from not necessarily saying the song is done just because, there seems like there's a beginning and a middle and what could, potentially be an end.
Yeah.
I listen to it, I got a groove to it. Like when I listen to our song, like I've got a groove to it. I've got to imagine, what I would be doing, like what type of song it feels like to me. So
Yeah, man.
yeah, like the live studio thing with musicians, bro, nothing like it, man.
There's nothing like it, man. There really isn't. Just because it's so honoring to what music is.
Yeah.
It's just a happening, and the less thought goes into it, the more you feel it. I mean,
Yeah.
feeling is always sort of the opposite of thought, isn't it?
Yeah. Woo.
So the less thinking, it's all feeling, man.
Yeah.
And that really just opened my eyes, it opened my ears, it opened my heart, and now, that's how I want to do it, like pretty much from now on.
Nice.
Yeah.
So how did you end up like we were trading we've been trading we've traded musician stories, in terms of all these different amazing musicians we've had a chance to play with and interact with and everything like that. I gotta know about Dr. Steve
Oh,
and how that relation. I mean, like one of the greatest. How did that happen? Like, how did that start?
yeah. Man, that you're right. Definitely one of the greatest. So, I when I had the songs together for that record for Live It Out, um, and I told you the story in the first part where I said I realized that I don't need to wait on a record company to give me a green light or to give me money to make this record. I can do it myself. I saved up a little bit of money from some of the production and gigs and live gigs I did. Um, I just invested in myself. And then I started thinking I can produce it myself too. I produce for other people. I produce my own record, man.
Yep.
So I started like probably a lot of producers would do when they start going for a project. It's like, what's the rhythm section going to be like? So I picked out all these references from my vinyl and my CD selection collection. Just the drum sounds I liked. And I picked out a little bit of George Benson, and I picked out a little bit of Al Jarreau, and I picked out a little bit. So at the end of the day, I had a pile of music, of references. And it turned out that probably like 60% of those records were played by Steve Gadd. I had to find a drummer that sounded just like Steve Gadd was my first thought. The second thought was, wait a minute, Steve Gadd, it's around, man. Like, let me just, try and reach out. So that's what we did. Just send him an email. Hey, it's just I'm not a big shot from anywhere. I'm just a kid from Holland wanting to make a record. Um, would you be interested? And he came back to me pretty much the same day. He said, well, very busy, but send me some music, and let me have a listen. And I did. And the next day he came back. I love it. Let's go. Simple as that, man. So I flew to LA,
Okay.
booked a studio there for 3 days to record 12 or 13 songs. And that's what we did. We did like 3 or 4 songs a day.
Wow.
And it was beautiful, man. And then you can't lose. Like it's like you're making a movie as a young director, and all of a sudden like just name any top actor signs in for a movie. Like you can't lose anymore.
Wow. Where do
Because
you
after
record
that
in
too,
LA?
was that now?
Where do you record in LA? Like where? Or I'm asking personally. I'm just.
Yeah, no, sure. Well, by now, there's a lot of different places I would recommend, but at that time, a friend of mine had hooked me up with the what's that publishing company? I forgot what company it was. One of the big publishing companies they had a studio that they would allow their writers to write and record. And I wasn't with that company, but a friend of mine was, and so he helped me set up a deal where I could hire it from the publishing company and do it. It worked out great, man.
Nice.
And what I did was I just took my demos and I just programmed the drums on those and I played all the parts. Kind of crappy. The feel was right though. The
Yeah.
sound was crappy. And then I took out the drums, left all the other stuff, and had him play to my demos. And
Nice.
then once he played, threw away all the stuff and then got players in to play on top of him.
Nice.
So it
Yes.
was a nice process.
I see some people joining in. I just wanted to say hey to everybody here in the
Yeah,
States,
what's up, everyone?
paying attention. This is Alain Clark. This is one of my favorite artists. I just wanted to take a second, man. Please take a second and just listen to anything of my guys. He's amazing.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
I appreciate people with catalog, not just albums, but
Right.
everything has its own, thing. It has its own vibe. It has its own feel. I went through. I was looking at all your videos and everything,
Oh,
and
I
I was just
appreciate
like,
that, man.
yo,
I
you know, I rock with you, bro. I rock with you
appreciate
heavy.
that, man.
Um, I was gonna ask you about being a parent, bro.
Oh, yeah. You don't have kids, right?
I don't.
Yeah,
I was
man.
gonna ask you though. So you talked about how earlier in part one, you talked about how you would just kind of be hanging with Pops, and
Right.
you know, you kind of got that exposure with his band and everything. I've seen video footage of your
Yeah,
son like actually performing with you,
yeah,
uh, and I just was like, man, do you ever like? And he was a natural. It was no like fear or anything. It's like, boom, I'm out here, and I was just curious. Do you find yourself trying to like his music just automatically been what he gravitates to? Have you felt like, you know, where's the push and pull as a parent as it relates to kind of nurturing what he's into and everything?
yeah. Well, I mean, it was definitely very clear from a very young age for him that he had that musical gene. Um, and I personally decided pretty early on that I didn't want to like force anything.
Okay.
So I just figured like, man, there's all these instruments around the house. I have a studio. I'm always singing, playing, writing. You know, his bedroom is right here, pretty much, a, like it's the living room and his bedroom is like right there. So whenever he goes to bed, he'll hear us play and make music or have music conversations. So he's gonna grow up with that stuff. Like I don't need to push anything at all.
Yeah.
And till now, man, if I, I find that it works pretty well, you know. And also another thing that we do is like whenever we're in the car, or we do it at the house sometimes too, is we sort of is one of the things we like to do is like take turns in playing music. So he'll play a song, then my girlfriend will play a song, I play a song, and I always try to be very mindful of what I play.
Okay.
So instead of like telling him like you should listen to Sly and the Family Stone. I was like, oh, it's my turn, right? And I'll just pick a Sly and the Family Stone song because I wanted to hear it. And you can just see those little eyes like, oh, that's just interesting. Yeah, yeah. You know what I mean? So kind of try to do it like that, man. Just keep it
Right.
fun and organic and um, yeah. And he inspires me too. Like a lot of times he'll come out, he'll bust out an idea. I was like, man, this is like this kid doesn't know what ASCAP is yet. uh, No, but it's great, man. It's really great. It's fun to be able to share that.
So when he performed with you, was that your idea or his idea, or how did you, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was actually his idea. It was at the end of I don't know what you saw if you saw the one was there an audience there or was that at the house?
Yeah. There was an audience there,
Okay,
and it was just you and him. He was standing.
on stage, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so no, I was getting ready to tour and a friend of his in school had this Irish kid, so they're very much into music. And his mom took the kid for to a concert and the artist had invited him up on stage.
Okay.
So that was a big deal in class. And Nilos was my boy was like, wait a minute, my dad's a singer, so I get I could get this done. So he's like, hey dad, you're touring, right? I was like, yeah, I want to come on stage with you. I was like, all right, yeah. I was like, you want to sing Father and Friend? He was like, yeah. When do you start playing? I was like, oh, I'll start next week. I want to be there next week. I was like, no, you got to practice. Like, for sure, you got to practice. So he did, man. And he was there, like, probably, yeah, the last show of the tour. He came on stage.
Wow.
And it was great. And it was just like whatever. He just came on and did it, man. It was great.
It's like,
And
so about my rate, Dad.
yeah, exactly. Exactly, man. It was what was fun too. So we sang the song that I always sang with my father. And obviously in the lyrics it's a conversation. So now my father not being on stage, like I took his spot and then my son took my spot. But my dad was in the audience and that video you saw
Wow.
was probably the one that my dad filmed.
Wow. What did
Such
your
a
dad think about that?
oh man. He was like, I'm out of a gig. No, but
So,
that was great, and you know, that's always the thing that my dad will tell anyone who asks him, like, you know, what's it like to be on stage with your son? And he's always got this sort of typical answer, like, yeah, it's the best thing in the world, and blah blah blah, I'm proud, and this and that. But now I actually got to experience that, you know.
wow,
Beautiful,
man,
man.
that's that's really cool, man. You know, and the
Yeah,
song, you know, people are like, hey, I want to see it. You know, you got to post that on the throwback or something like that one of these days,
yeah,
bro.
yeah. I will. That's a good
Yeah,
idea.
I
Yeah,
um I wanted to get into a little bit of the nooks and crannies of the business of music.
yeah,
I tend to have people tune in who are aspiring in some way or another,
yeah,
so I try to impart some knowledge when I can. Um, so I was going to ask you about, and you and I have already had this conversation, but for those who are watching, your interpretation of indie, kind of indie versus major, it's a little bit different. You know, you're coming from an international perspective, so not
yeah.
everything is the same. So I was just curious what your perspective was, and if it makes a difference whether the label is in your, you know, the country you live in or out of the country, that type of thing. That would be a different perspective as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's, and I like your word choice of perspective because that's really all it always is, right? Like, I mean, my experiences is mine and my perspective is mine, but that doesn't mean shit for anybody else, or it doesn't
Yeah,
have to. Um, but all I can say from my perspective is that at the end of the day, whether you go indie or with a major, you're always going to need people to help you out. The indie route is, I mean, the pros about that, for as far as I'm concerned, is that you literally get to pick the people that you know that you want on your team. Um, but it's a lot of work. You know, you got to find those people. You got to make sure they're enthusiastic enough and feel it, that they're real with you, all that stuff. Um, you know, but the same goes for a label. Like a label, you could be signed to the greatest label in the world, business in business terms. But if the people aren't really feeling your music or you're not feeling the people, then it's not going to work out as well. So at the end of the day, to me, it's all about having relationships with people, man.
yeah,
You know, and if you can get that right, and if you can surround yourself with people who really believe in you, whether you go to indie route or the, you know, the major route, you know, that's where to me the key of success is. And I'm
yeah,
preaching to myself too. Like this is like it's always important for anybody. I think even if you're the biggest star in the world, it's probably even more important to find people around you that you can really trust and who will ride or ride or die for you. You know.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, you know, I find that it's very tricky these days because it just seems like everybody's doing so well. You know, and you get some good numbers on your streams or reviews or whatever, and it looks like you're the shit. But um, you know, it doesn't really mean anything if you don't have that team or those people that can support you and help you carry it through and keep it going as well.
yeah,
And that requires a lot of time and investment and talking and relationship building and trust building and all that stuff. I think. Um, I personally don't believe there's a sort of a quick Super Mario Kart cutoff for that stuff. You know, you got to do the
yeah,
rounds.
yeah. So here's my curveball for you, if you will. Um, I like being outside of the country because I get to look at the U.S. from a different lens.
Yeah,
The news is different, you know, the perspective, right? There's a world view, and a lot of times when I'm speaking for myself, when I'm here and some of my other, let's say, countrymen, we get caught up, and I'm sure this is true for other people in other countries as well, in what's going on in our own uh, situation, and we don't look at it from an outsider's perspective. I don't want to say from an objective perspective, but we just don't realize how we might be perceived outside of our
right.
own country. So I like being able to go to Holland or go to France and then look and say, oh wow, this is how we're coming off. This is
Mm,
how this is the impression
mm.
that we're giving off. And I wanted to ask you if you've kind of, in general terms, what your impression has been kind of the way things are going. Like we're in a tumultuous time period. Like this is, being a black man in America is tough. It's stated, and some might feel it's overstated, but as soon as you feel like it's overstated, there's another reason to state it again.
Yeah, right, man.
So um, I wanted to know what what it looks like, from your perspective in terms of how what we're dealing with. You can speak about anything that you like, but I'm curious about your interpretation or what it kind of looks like in terms of what we're dealing with, in terms of the inequity,
Yeah,
when it comes to brutality in certain elements.
man. I'll tell you. I had, my perspective is a little skewed in the sort of realistic way because of the time that I spent in the States.
Okay.
So I have a feeling that I get to see and understand it a little bit better than if I hadn't spent that time there. The seriousness of it, because you know, and I'm not trying to say that some of those issues aren't also going on out here, because they are.
Okay.
But it definitely feels different here. You know,
Okay.
like if and I don't know if you pick up on that when you
Yeah.
spend time here.
Yeah, I have.
There's a lot more relaxedness here in general around those issues. Not those issues that take place there, because the
Right.
seriousness of it is definitely understood, and but just here locally, things tend to be a little bit more free, I think, and a little bit more open and a little bit more together. Not completely, don't get me wrong, because there's issues, but it's definitely different from what we see goes on in your country.
Yeah.
And man, it's shameful, isn't it? Like that's the type of thing that it's like, yeah, it's uh, just the whole human beingness is a can be a very ugly thing when you see
Yeah.
shit like that, man.
Do you feel like you, as an artist, have you ever felt like, I need to use my voice in order to support this or to support that? Is there ever that type of pressure? Like I've seen on social media, some people, being ridiculed because they're not, more up in arms about this or about that,
Yeah,
and obviously everyone is entitled to speak how
yeah,
how they want and about what they want. But
yeah.
is there a social responsibility as an artist
Mm.
to speak to certain matters that are affecting the
That's a
country
good
or
that's a good question, man. I think I definitely, if it's I feel personally, if it's an authentic and a real feeling, that you feel, then you should speak on that. And I wouldn't go as far as to say it's a responsibility, because if you
okay,
don't feel that way, I think there's enough artists out there that are just, in the interest of being an artist and a singer. But at the same time, if there's an authentic feeling and emotion or issue within you that you feel you need to speak out on, and you have that stage to do it, then I definitely think you should. But again, like, I think that the issue here is a little bit different. Like, and there's other issues where that has come up, like where there's been sort of almost like national discussions about the involvement of artists and stuff on certain issues. And I don't know, man. It's not gonna work if you just do it because you feel pressured to do it.
yeah,
That's what I feel.
yeah, I agree.
Um,
It has to
but
come
but
from
but
an authentic place, for sure.
yeah,
uh,
but I do feel that the convo is really important, and the feeling of unity is important, and any sort of action that is taken to unite people and to spread love over hate, I think, is very important. And I would always attest to being a part of that for sure.
Gotcha. I always used to be like, man, in Europe it's a different thing because you can get in a car and you can drive to Germany. You can drive to Paris. You can drive to Antwerp, you know, uh, and instantly be in another country, not just another city with the same kind of social norms, but a completely different country with their own
Yeah.
style, their own thing, and cultural norms. And to me, it breeds tolerance and an
Mm.
understanding of, hey, this is not my world. When I go to Holland, I'm like, doei, doei. Anytime I can, I'm trying
Yeah.
to ingest whatever it is that's a part of the culture because I understand that it creates for a better human connection. When you're outside of your comfort zone, you learn more about yourself and you start to value uh, other people and other cultures and that contribution to the world landscape, if you will. And I feel like here where I mean, I've met people who are like, why the heck would I ever want to go to France? I've got
Right.
everything I need here, and it's just like,
Yeah.
oh man, I
But
feel
don't get
like
it
you all
twisted though, man. There's a lot of people out here that feel the same way about going to France.
really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we also have, yeah, just a lot of different types of people out here.
Yeah.
I guess I just people are people, right? Like we're all. It's not just because it's sort of on the other end of the ocean, all of a sudden everything's going to be different. Same emotions, same ideas, same movies that inspire us in different ways, and stories and music. And so, end of the day, I think it all just comes down to the same thing, man. Like, we gotta we gotta let love rule, and
Yeah.
whatever way we can figure out to do it, that's how we gotta do it.
Yeah.
Um, because also, I imagine like if you're from the States and you go to Europe, that's what you do. You pick your countries and you take a car or a train or a plane and you just go visit the countries. When you were born in Holland, I don't. I mean, I might do it sometimes, but I don't really like. We don't. It's not like, hey, we're gonna drive to Paris. That's like going to a different country. I'd probably feel the same as you going to Mexico.
Uh,
You know,
got you.
because it's a different country. Um, so in that sense, like, I agree with you, and I can imagine that a lot of what you're saying has real clout to it, and truth to it. But at the same time, I actually feel like a lot of people, yeah, it's sort of a similar disposition as
Yeah.
people have in the States.
Yeah. I mean, me, like, I know that when I go to Holland, I know that there are some impoverished people in
Right.
Holland that is going to be treated in a similar way that some impoverished people are treated in the UK
Exactly.
and in Italy.
Exactly.
And if you take those impoverished people from those different countries and you put them in the room, they all look different. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's kind of
That's true
like,
though.
wow. It's like, wow, like if you go to the UK there, I remember being in the UK when I had locks and being in a store and I was with somebody and I was treated in a certain type of way and I'm like, what's going on? They were like, oh yeah, they thought you were, you know,
Oh wow.
yeah. So it's like, wow, I think a lot of it has to do with colonialism, the
Yeah.
leftover effects of colonialism and some of those things that haven't been reconciled.
Yeah.
Reconciliation is difficult, but it takes two sides to reconcile. So
Takes two
you know what I
sides,
mean?
and probably realistically a long time of generation, like multiple generations to get there too.
Yeah,
And even still, man, if you look back at some of the issues that still are so current today as like 100 years, or
true.
it's scary, but it kind of does prove that that's just part of what we have in us as human beings. It's like
Yeah,
that scary, ugly side too. And it's just something that we do have to. I'm not gonna say accept because I feel like but at least accept the fact that we might have to keep confronting that. probably for as long as we live, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just part of the work. Maybe that's part of why we're all here, to just sort of solve that shit, you know.
And if there is a genuine interest in confronting it, then at some point, you know, God willing, there is an opportunity for full reconciliation. But when people are, it's like almost like if you want to apologize to someone and you're the person who did the wrong and you want to apologize, but they don't even want to talk to you, they don't even want to listen to you, they don't even, that, you know, it takes that person being willing to allow for some type of reconciliation to occur. I definitely don't know the answers. I know that people ask me who haven't traveled outside of the country, what's it like? And one person, I was like, yo, as a black man, imagine, I was like, you don't realize the weight that you carry on a consistent basis until you don't have to bear that weight anymore. Like when I go to Holland, I'm an American.
Right, it's true. Yeah.
I'm an American. So it's like I'm looked at more as a foreigner, but but even inside of that, there's oh, he's an American. Oh, he's a black American. Oh, that, you know, I would liken it to like if I was in high school and some French kid came to in my school and was all of a sudden like, hey, excuse me, I have to go to the bathroom. Like all the girls would be like, oh my gosh, he's so cool. You know, so it's like, and all the guys would be like, man, we say that all the time. We don't get any claps, you know. But it's just one of those things, man. I feel like music just has a certain type of ability to bring us together and heal and do all these different things. It's such a powerful tool, man, you know?
It's true, man. And also, you know, maybe in a messed up way, something like that's going on with the whole COVID situation now, and obviously with great respects to people who are literally suffering in health and finance and stuff. But it's definitely something that in a certain way unifies us as well.
True.
Right?
True.
Like
Yeah.
for the very scarce time in history, we all confront like similar real problems and restrictions and stuff. Um, and this is sort of one thing. Maybe there'll be more things in the future. Maybe even on a positive note, that'll be so overwhelmingly outside of us. At least that's how we might experience it, to where it unifies us as a group. You know.
That would be, man, that would be great.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, safe space.
Oh man, there we go.
I had the fortune of being able to join you, and I remember once everything first hit, you know, there were few people that were on the right on the cusp, like, hey, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna let this, you know, I'm gonna make this adjustment, and boom. And you were one of the first people that I saw meet this thing head on and create an opportunity for people to escape some of what they were dealing with on a regular basis. I wanted to know kind of, was it just an instant idea for you? And, you know, how did that come about?
Kind of, man. It's really just how you just put it. Like my very first idea was, okay, so we can't play. Man, I had a gig on Sunday and this was like on a Thursday. It's like, man, let me just get the band in on my apartment on Sunday and we'll just play live online. And then the next thought was like, you know what? Let's just invite, you know, an artist every day because we're all in this together. That's how it started, man. And just like that, like let's just create a little positive thing for people to log into and you know, get some positivity every day, man. It's like, you know, what you're doing now, what I'm doing, like, and a lot of people are doing it. It's great. Like I think it's a great thing that came out of this. So I just do it here, man. Just here in my apartment. It's this backdrop, and the first week I actually had artists in the apartment, and we would jam together. And then it got like with the whole social distancing thing. So then like we did our session through the computer screen, man.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's great. It's just such a great way to connect. Like, even I'm enjoying this so much, man. It's, you know, we hang out and talk, but it's nice to be able to go to these depths, just talking about music and life and inspiration and all that stuff. You do great, man. I love what you're doing with the Kandid. It's beautiful stuff.
Thanks, man. Thanks. I appreciate it. I live alone, you know, so when social distancing happened, I felt like I was just on the edge of a cliff, like by myself. It's like
Yeah,
TikTok, TikTok, you know.
yeah,
Um, and I was telling this to another friend of mine, Anthony David. I was like, man, you know, you see your friends that are artists, but
yeah.
you don't get to necessarily spend time with them when you see them. You know,
Oh, man.
it's like backstage, hey man, oh god, and then you're gone. You know, or you see
Yeah.
somebody in the airport or something like that. So, you
It's
know,
usually a quick conversation or a quick bit of music, or but we don't really, and that's what's beautiful about this, about what you're doing, about what I'm trying to do is you actually get to connect with someone and find inspiration with your peers, and that way, hopefully, inspire other people who watch and listen as well. And that, man, that's just like how much more pure than that can it get, you know?
yeah,
We should
for
do this
sure.
every, well, you do this every night.
It's man, it's taking a life of its own, bro. You know,
Yeah,
it takes effort, as you know.
right.
Um, but I think there is some source of joy when you're able to do something and people can take something from it. It's what we're doing. It's what we do anyway musically. You know,
Yeah.
it's what we do. What we hope to happen. This is, you know, real time. Oh, thanks for saying we both look good.
Oh, well, thank you.
I'm gonna accept that compliment. um, but I wanted to just really quick shout out your new record. I'm not going to hold you anymore. I do know it's late. I'm going to post both of these parts so people can check it out, and I'll grab some of the many moments that we've had in this
That's great, man.
conversation to post as well. But I did
Thank
want to give the floor to you really quickly to just tell everybody about your newest release and about how you'll be resuming activities or anything that's might be coming up for you in the future.
Thank you, my brother. Okay, so my latest release is an album called Sunday Afternoon, you know, and you can find that on all the platforms and blah 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 blah. All the reasons why you need to hear it. Vinyl, I got it on vinyl too. If you're interested, you know, give me a shout. Um, yeah, man, the record is it's laid back. It's feel good. Um, you just gotta hear it, you know. That's all. Like
Yeah.
I can, I don't have any more lyrics left. They're all in the song. That's it.
The album is
But I
great.
appreciate that, Cam. Thank you for that little moment.
No doubt. I listened to it when it first came out. I remember being at your spot when the vinyl
That's
came in.
correct. When it came
Yeah.
in, yeah,
Yeah.
man.
So
Yeah,
I had a moment, you know what I mean?
yeah,
I do want to do a quick plug for a record that you and I have together
yeah,
called I Do. I
yeah.
have been playing it for some select people here, and the reviews have been amazing. You know,
I
of the
bet, man.
demo too, bro. It's just nothing like that. You know, you're slapping the guitar, and you know, it's just got that vibe to it. You know, so I do want to let you know that it's being received very well here. And I'm glad that you were able to carve some time out for me, man. I'm glad we were even able to meet. You know, that led to, you know, it's led to so much. And I can tend to be a hater sometimes, you know, like I'm one of those guys, I don't listen to a lot of new music at all. You
Right.
know, I only listen to what's inspired me to
Yeah.
to do music. So you'll catch me listening to Prince records all day,
Gotcha,
and
man.
you know, Maxwell's first album, all those things that kind of just really, you know, made me want to do music in the first place. But when there are artists that I can indulge in that I would consider a peer, I'd be like, hey, I would hang out with him. Yeah. Yeah. So I just want to say, man, good vibes as always, bro. Um,
Thank
Continue
you, brother.
success. Tell the little one I said what's up.
Will do for
Um,
sure, man.
yeah, man, and we'll be tuning into everything you have going on, and I'll tag you and everything, man. But
Likewise, my brother. We'll keep rapping about you here, and can't wait to have you back on this side of the ocean, man. Make some music together, and once we get the concert stuff going again, you know you got to jump on stage with me sometime, and we'll jam out a little bit.
for sure, bro. Thank
Yeah.
you, man. Thanks again.
Thank you, my bro.
All right, bro.
We'll
Take
talk
care.
soon. All right,
Yes, sir.
later.